Welcome to Victory Points. I'm Becca Scott.
And I'm Jake Michels.
This is a podcast about people who love tabletop games, interviewing other people who love tabletop games about the tabletop games they love. This week, our guest is Gina Devivo. Gina is a role-playing goddess, an incredibly talented game master, an artist, a crafting expert. You can find her playing Luma on Geek and Sundry's cyberpunk RPG Callisto 6, live on Twitch on Wednesday nights with TBD RPG. Oh my gosh, my power. My power.
And she's a frequent guest on our show Game the Game and all over the role-playing internet. Gina,
yes.
Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Good save, Jake. See, the power part wasn't connected to the block part.
That helps.
Gina, hi.
Hi.
What'd you think of your intro?
I liked it. It was disjointed like me.
Oh, yeah. What's
Is
disjointed
that like
about
the
you?
opposite of double jointed?
I am double jointed, actually.
Show us.
Well, on an audio medium, this is perfect.
I will describe it as you do it.
Okay,
So
so I
she's
can bend my
raising-
thumb all the way back, and it just goes.
Oh, man. You guys, it's
To
touching her
touch the wrist.
forearm.
Oh my
Yes.
God.
That's wicked. Yeah,
In
I cannot
comparison,
do that, no.
there is 6 inches between my forearm and my thumb when I try to do
I know.
that.
I barely have to stretch. I'm just wiggling.
Am I double jointed or is this just hurting
Oh,
too
that's
much?
forward.
Oh.
Yeah, no,
You got to go backwards.
Oh, yep. Nope. Can't do it.
You tried, and that's all that matters.
Well, hope you all heard us struggling, but Gina was effortless when she bent it back. And that's what you get through the audio medium. So, today, we're going to talk about all the things Gina's up to,
Yeah.
what she likes in a game, and a few of your favorite tabletop games, Kingdom Death,
Yes.
Carcassonne,
Yes.
and Illimat.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Camp Grizzly. That's my particular favorite.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well then you have to tell us all about Camp Grizzly as well. So let's do those things. But first,
Perfect.
I want to know, Gina, what were the first games you were obsessed with?
Oh, obsessed with?
Or what do
Okay.
you remember playing when you
When
were
I was a
younger?
youngin'?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think I was probably one of the very few kids in the entire world that actually likes Monopoly.
No, I love Monopoly.
Lots-
Do
lots
you?
of kids
Oh my
did.
gosh, thank you. Okay, so yeah, no, but there's always that immediate visceral, oh God, not Monopoly. My family used to make me play for hours, and I'm like,
That's how
I
you
would
do
be
it.
that kid that was like,
Yeah.
no, you've still got $10 left. You have a chance. Play me. And they're like, you have everything. You have all the hotels. You literally own the bank. Can we just stop now? And I'm like, you have a chance. You can bargain with me. And I'm not
And
not
the joke
super
is,
strict.
it's like capitalism, and they really don't have a chance.
They have no chance.
Yeah, but I'm always in favor of, I don't mind if you're just kind of like, you want to trade me a thing? And then you're like, sure, why not?
You just like extending the pain.
Oh man, how long do you want
Yeah.
the game to last?
I mean, until everyone's done having fun, including myself. So
You just have more endurance than others.
I think I just have more endurance as long as everyone is sort of loosey-goosey about it. If everyone is sort of still having fun with it or making homebrew rules about it or sort of just inventing new ways for it to go on and have fun. And if you're like, everyone, we get a bailout now, and everyone gets
What?
more stuff.
You had federal bailouts? That's amazing.
I just
That's a great home
it's
rule.
way more fun to just sort of keep it going and invent and just stacking new ways to make it weird and fun and last longer.
So to make Monopoly a role-playing game.
yeah, that's that. You're gonna learn that very fast about me. I do that. Usually games I play are ones that I can add some sort of role play element. If it's just a Western game, guess what? We're all Southern and we're all going to talk like cowboys and we're all going to just, or you can be whatever you
And
want
I
in it.
will
but-
shoot you.
And I will. And I'm probably going to bring fake mustaches to the group and we're just going to have a fun time with it.
Everybody in the Old West had a mustache.
Everyone.
That is
weren't
the best
allowed.
way to experience board games, though, is like to take on the role a little bit. Like, you don't have to get too hokey with it if you're not into role playing, which some people
Sure.
aren't. But like,
Yeah.
as theater kids, I know we are. But like, getting into it and like embracing the theme is some of the best parts of it.
Yeah, that's generally my favorite part of how I tabletop.
Some would say the best parts of life are when you go all in.
This is true.
Hmm.
With a fake mustache.
With a fake mustache. Well,
Is that Psalms? What is that?
That's Psalms. Yes, I'm quoting Psalms.
Cool,
I've
that's okay.
memorized it. Psalms 32:64.
3264. Yeah, okay, great.
Gina, what is the best part of being on Callisto 6?
Ooh, I mean,
And maybe we should
All
start
the
with what is
things.
Callisto 6?
well, Callisto 6 is a genre we're sort of inventing / having fun in called superpunks, which is cyberpunk / superheroes. So mixing the sort of dystopian depression sort of everything is sad and horrible with the hope and optimism of a superhero genre. And all of us sort of obtained sort of powers and are now working to take down the corporations and bring hope to the city.
What are Luma's powers?
Oh, she's a shapeshifter. She's the lovable kindergarten teacher shapeshifter.
Does she ever do it to get her point across while teaching?
Oh, I'm sure she's turned into several sort of, because she also has gained the ability to turn into animals. She can just sort of change shape in general. So there's definitely times when she's been like, these children are too rowdy. Hello, puppy. I'm just a puppy now.
So
just
she's
play with the puppy.
she's the teacher and the class pet.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Oh.
I like that.
Does a teacher's salary support superheroing?
No, but she's got several jobs.
Got it.
And luckily, she lives in a place called Raft City, which is sort of very just, she's got a boat. The family owns it. You're good.
All you need is a boat in Raft City?
Yeah.
Raft City.
Raft.
For rafting.
Yeah.
Does everyone live in Raft City?
No, not everyone. A couple of people in the campaign do.
This is a campaign that's a live show on Twitch.
It's a live show on Twitch. Eric Campbell is the GM, and we've got the lovely Amy Dallin, Sam DeLev,
And it's on the Geek and Sundry channel.
It's on Geek and Sundry. Yeah, it's wonderful. It's fun.
Okay, now back to my original question. What's
Yes.
your favorite part?
My favorite part. Okay, well, one, selfishly, I love getting dressed because we all do it in costume. So we dress as our characters. We just cosplay as ourselves to
That's
sort of
not
get.
selfishly. That's allowing yourself to fully inhibit the role.
Yeah, absolutely.
Inhibit. That's the wrong. Inhabit.
Inhabit.
The opposite of that.
Yes,
Don't
yes.
laugh at me, Jake. My outline.
What makes superpunk like? Tell me a little
Yes.
bit more about the difference between that and cyberpunk. Actually, what is
Well-
cyberpunk for people who might not know?
Cyberpunk is a
You
genre.
idiots.
Cyberpunk is sort of a genre you recognize, like Blade Runner and sort of film noir-esque in a dystopian future setting. Generally about sort of corporations crushing the little guy and or just complete monopolies of everything in the world, and it sort
Where everyone gets a bailout?
of not so much.
Not in this world.
Computer technology is like a big thing.
Lots
Hackers
of
are
tech,
big things,
lots
right?
of
Yeah.
hacking,
Mhm.
lots of sort of
A lot of 80s
body
music.
modification with cybernetics and sort of technology being so normalized that it's everywhere. And
So then Superpunk
And
takes
then
it by adding the superhero element to it and kind of the grandeur of superhero stories, right?
yeah, very very much so. The ultimate hope of anyone can be a hero, anyone can sort of rise to the challenge to make your city and community a better place, and which is the exact opposite spectrum of cyberpunk. Cyberpunk is very individualized and one person sort of going against the grain and that sort of thing. And this is sort of more taking a community in that world and forcing hope and community on them and everyone sort of rising to the occasion.
Forcing hope and community
Yes.
on you.
You know, lovingly.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. And then you are a very skillful craftsperson.
I like to think so.
How did you get that way?
I think I was just born that way. My mom was a big crafter, and so that was like a big thing in our house. And I've always just loved it. I like to be epic with small crafts. I'm like, that's why I'm not. I like the word artist, but particularly with labeling myself, I like crafter because it invokes like pipe cleaners and hot glue and popsicle sticks and stuff. I used to have a show called Minds and Crafts on Geek and Sundry that was all about sort of just inventing a craft between weeks and then bringing it to everyone. And it was always sort of, I wanted it to be accessible. I like accessible crafts and seeing the level in which different people can approach that sort of, yeah, sure, mine might look very polished or something, but it can also look good when it isn't. I like crafts that sort of anyone can do their own way.
They're accessible.
How did you come up with all the crafts for that show in particular? Because you had something new every single week.
Every week. Sometimes they went over because I would budget myself. I would make it at home and go, okay, this takes about 20 minutes. I can do this in 20 minutes. I have an hour show. I can teach them, and it'll be great. It'll fit in one episode, and then usually those episodes lasted 3 episodes because it just I'd be like, oh right, I can make it in 20 minutes. Add joking and riffing on top of that, and then I would never quite budget getting Amy Dallin and Steph Woodburn to sort of also make it in 20 minutes.
Because it wasn't about just the craft.
It wasn't at all.
It was about the friendship.
It was hanging out and usually accidentally not burning yourself with hot glue.
There was also the Minecraft component of that show,
That's
which
very
kind
true.
of it seemed to work because the title worked, right?
Well, yeah, but also Minecraft in general is all about building. It's creative freedom within a sort of 8-bit world. And you can make anything. People made music boxes, and it was a really I loved it. It was a beautiful way for the community to sort of show us their crafts just within a specific server setting.
Right, because at the end of each show, you'd go in and see what people have built within the Geek and Sundry server to show you.
Yes.
Knowing you'd go find it.
Absolutely. And we would give them challenges. And like during Halloween, we were like, all right, everyone, you got to make a haunted house. This is just what you got to do. And so we would get to go through all of these scare haunted houses, and people would make these music boxes for them. So you'd have this music that you would go through, and then things would trigger and you'd pop out and there'd be fake levers that would kill you. And it was just, it was so silly and wonderful.
Wait, I've never played Minecraft. Can you die?
Oh, absolutely. All the time.
Oh.
Over and over and over again.
Do you just
Now it sounds
respawn
like
in the
hell.
same place? Yeah.
Yeah, you can. And we were never quite that great at the controls. And so we had lovely, lovely, lovely community members that would help us get to places and teleport us to the correct location.
Hey, that's a lot, It's a lot.
It
It's
was
a
a
lot
lot.
to be able to walk.
We were
and
just too excited.
I have trouble with a map in real life, so a game map is just another element removed from the fact that directions are hard.
It's true. And keyboard gaming was sort of never my forte. I'm not quite good at that. I don't know the
What are you good at?
up, down, left, right, but it's like WASD.
WS.
I don't know. I don't even know it. What is it? You have a laptop
QWER.
on yours?
You're not using QWER for your up, down, left, right, are you?
Yeah.
You use these 4 keys? You don't use these 4 keys?
Well,
We got to get like a camera on your
WASD.
hand for Twitch streaming. This
I
is
don't
revolutionary.
game like that either.
You don't game
It's
WASD.
confusing for my hands.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. What is your favorite video game to play? That's not what the show is about, but that's what I want to talk about.
At this particular moment, I love co-op games. You know this about me. I'm a ride or die for co-op games. So it's generally what I like to do. I'm playing a lot of Towerfall. I just played this amazing indie game called Pode, Pode. It's the most sweet, romantic, lovely game. It is about a falling star who falls to a planet, and then a adorable little lava rock falls in love with the falling star, and they look and see that there's the tallest mountain on the planet, and they work together to sort of bring the star back up to the sky. And it's just so
cool.
lovely. You have to work together. You have to hold hands.
Oh my goodness, that's too cute.
It's too cute, and it's just full of beautiful.
It's a puzzle game?
It's a puzzle game, so it's
Cool.
really relaxing. And the star's power is to make everything bloom. So you have all these beautiful succulents and alien like plantation stuff, like plants and things grow as your powers sort of interact with them. And the lava rocks ignites sort of beautiful crystals and all that stuff. So it's just succulents and crystals throughout this beautiful game.
That's all I want in my home.
It's gorgeous.
It's perfect for decorating.
Exactly. It was such
Succulents and
inspiration.
That kind of reminds me of a little indie game called Chariot that's from like 8 years ago. And a brother and sister are in this side scroller helping bring their father's casket back home. He was the king and they have to give it a proper burial, but his ghost is following you around like, make sure you're careful with that thing.
That's pretty
And it's a
great.
puzzle game, and they one of them pulls and one of them pushes the chariot, which is a casket, and then you have to like use it in interesting ways in order to get across different
Like
parts
make it
of
a
the level.
bridge
Yeah.
and stuff.
Yeah. Swing from one end, and
Nice.
yeah, it's pretty cool.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's talk about, you love co-op games, and there's
I
an
do.
interesting one that was on your list of games you enjoy, which is Kingdom Death Monster.
Yes.
And
Kingdom Death Monster.
yeah, and
Have you ever
Kingdom
played
Death.
it?
I have not. I've heard of this game from my friend who was obsessed with the Kickstarter when it was like
Yes.
just getting geared up, and he talked about it immensely.
Yeah.
I just want to talk about quickly that Kingdom Death Monster 1.5 is they put out a second run on Kickstarter, and they had a goal of $100,000, and they made $12.3 million.
Yeah, KDM is popular.
Yeah. And this is a cooperative campaign game for 1 to 4 players, but ideally 4.
Yeah.
It seems to me sort of like D&D on rails.
Very much. It's another game you can sort of add as much RP to as you want, and we very much do. So it is a game in which you are a civilization in a world of absolute horror. Just there are dead bodies everywhere, horrifying monsters that are just the most grotesque human anatomy mixed with animals, mixed with just it's pretty grotesque, and it's wonderful. The miniatures are insanely cool. And they're huge too. And they're really, really cool. So basically you're a civilization and you start out with nothing. You were just naked babies running from monsters and trying to collect some resources, and you have to get used to dying horribly. There are constantly. You are shuffling through generations of people constantly.
So are you part of a lineage of that?
Yes.
Or you restart?
You hope that you make enough babies that you have a line of people, and we always like to sort of have a lot of fun with the naming conventions of, the family, like namesakes are really important.
Is making a baby a part of it?
Absolutely. You have to roll to make babies and hope that your civilization just doesn't dwindle out by the time everyone gets killed, inevitably.
So what happens if you die and there was no babies for you to inhabit? Then
you have to start a new colony. You sort of have to move on and
lose all your equipment and all your power-ups you've gotten through playing?
Unfortunately, yes.
Whoa.
But you get good.
The campaign, from what I remember of it, is like you are pretty much trying to survive in this, like, is it semi-post-apocalyptic, but like the fantasy world kind of thing where demons just kind of took over?
Sure, yeah.
Like a nightmare-scape.
A nightmare-scape,
Ooh,
yeah, I
good
would
word.
say. Because post-apocalyptic sort of semi-implies some sort of civilization.
Right.
It's not that at all.
Okay.
It's you got tiny sections of 10 people per community that is building out. And everything is just exactly a hellscape. And you have to go on you sort of send your particular adventurers out to collect resources and kill the monsters. And you send them out and some of them are, when you're first starting, no one knows anything. No one has weapons. You just gotta go out there and pray for the best. And sometimes you win, and then those people level up, and you're probably going to lose a lot of people in the beginning. But then once you sort of start they get hard. The monsters get harder and harder as you go. And you can do as many level 1 monsters as you want to sort of build up your defenses and weaponry and resources for your community. And
is it episodic, or is it like you just kind of pick up where you left off?
Yeah, it's sort of a legacy game. You just pick up exactly where you left off, and everything's trying to kill you, and you're just slowly building things to protect yourself. And it's really cool because the dice and it's this beautiful, huge book of information, and you'll just be on, one of the campaigns to attack a monster, and you'll roll, and it'll be like a creature comes out of the depths, and this happens, and you have to roll. And if you roll a 1, it's like, man, it disembowels you and eats your face.
Oh, no. Well, that seems weird. Why wouldn't it eat the organs it just disemboweled?
I mean,
why eat the face first?
Well, it disembowels you, then eats your face.
Oh, okay.
And
it just has a taste for faces, but loves to rip out the guts through the bowels.
No, it is gruesome. There's a creature that you can face that looks into your soul and destroys every generation, like future and past, that you have ever possibly going to father or going to birth, and destroys them. And then destroys your testicles, and then you stop existing. Like
sterilization
it just full erases your entire lineage because you failed, and that creature just annihilates you. I'm telling you,
worst way to die.
This is a brutal game. You can't get attached, but also you get attached because you name them.
Because you're human.
Yeah.
So I have a question about brutal games, though, because there's a thing about brutal games where it's just a lot of bad news.
Yes.
Frequently?
Yes.
Is it funny?
Yeah.
That's the thing. That's the thing. So this is, you know me, I like happy things. I like wholesome things.
Yes.
I like very, very easygoing, happy games. KDM is not that at all. And so the way that the friends that I play with.
KDM. KDM. I get it
Nicole
now.
Kingdom, death.
You're so cool with the lingo.
Thanks.
Okay, continue.
The way that we sort of make it fun, we've definitely had game nights where it was not fun, when just we've lost the entire civilization. I mean, fun in the sense of it was not happy. We've lost everyone, and it was sort of just like, all of our beautiful legacy characters, their entire... everything is gone, and you just you have a little moment to mourn. But for the most part, because it's so out there and so gruesome and so ridiculous, you sort of can treat it like a C horror movie. You just kind of can laugh at how brutally like we had a character called John Stamos, like that's his full first name, John Stamos. And so when anything bad happens to John Stamos, you just oh my God,
don't let anything bad happen to John Stamos.
Exactly. So you keep it fun by just being too into it and loving it too much and caring so much, and then when they inevitably die horribly, it's just this big epic event that you all have to commiserate around, and when you triumph, though, oh boy, does it feel amazing.
Oh boy. That sounds so cool. Now I don't ever want to play any other game. KDM.
How long's the campaign?
You can make it go as long as you want. You can play one monster, or you can sit there for 6 hours and just order a bunch of food and play it.
So it's not really D&D on rails. It's just another role-playing game with a little bit more of a board feel?
Oh, I mean, definitely. I don't imagine everyone role-plays with it. You just sort of have your characters, and you have miniatures, and you go around the board and you fight things, and then you have this sort of down step when you've collected resources. If you've successfully beaten a monster and collected the things, you could bring back its hide and its organs and
stuff to craft with.
Yeah, and you
pipe cleaner.
And those are all on cards.
They're all on cards.
Oh, so satisfying. See, This is what I wish D&D had, which it can have. There are companies that make cards for D&D, but I love components I can feel in my hands, and that's what was hard for me to get used to in getting into role-playing games.
Yeah. Well, then you probably love this game.
I'm so excited.
There's a lot of tokens, because you can have like bleeding tokens and evasion tokens and speed. There's a lot of parts.
And giant figures.
And giant figures that I imagine, I've looked at some of the paintings that people have done for the miniatures. They're gorgeously insane.
I really don't really care about miniatures most of the time, but I will say these are amazing. They're so cool and detailed.
Creepy.
Yeah.
Super creepy.
Check
There's
them
a
out
giant like
on their Kickstarter.
meatball with like spider legs.
Ooh.
The giant bird thing's really cool.
The giant bird thing is the thing that erases your generations.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. Uh-oh. Oh. I'm really enjoying looking at the photos of these minis. I am going to shout out 2 other games with minis that I love.
Yes, go for it.
Court of the Dead Mourner's Call. That's
Ooh.
the op that just put that one out last year. And then Cthulhu Wars, which of course is Fantasy Flight. And we're going to cover On Game the Game soon.
Ooh.
Yeah, and that's a classic that has very, very creepy miniatures. But they already come in colorful plastic, so they don't need the painting. So if you don't go with painting, then you could still tell who's who mini belongs to whom. Yes. Just want to shout those out since we're talking about great minis.
Nice.
All right, we have to take a quick break for a word from our sponsors, and then we'll be back to talk about some other games with Gina Devivo. Hi, welcome back to Victory Points. We're here with Gina Devivo, who is teaching us all about her favorite games.
Yep, they're usually co-ops. Hi, that's me.
Now, another game you love is Camp Grizzly. This is a semi-cooperative horror game. You like horror genre as well.
I just happen to. They tend to lead really well to making fun with it, because the story is already really much there. So Camp Grizzly is a game and it is definitely co-op, but there are definitely elements where you don't have to be that kind to your fellow members. So Camp Grizzly is an amazing game that was kickstarted that is basically a 70s slasher movie in a board game. So you're all camp counselors at a summer camp, and a serial killer named Otis busts in and like throws one of your fellow counselors' heads in the fire, and then that's where the game begins. You have to like run away from this slasher.
Why did he come in and yell, "My name is Otis"?
Well, I don't. You sort of know his name is Otis because of the cards.
Got it.
But
it's Otis.
He's a giant serial killer, sort of Michael Myers-esque. Jason character with a teddy bear mask, just sort of this grotesque figure who just goes around and tries to kill everyone in the camp, and you have to sneak around and find. There are a bunch of different endings, and you have to go and try to find like the keys to the car and the gas, or the keys to the boat, or the radio tower batteries and things like that to sort of find which ending of the horror movie you get. And along the way, you could get killed and you sort of are bleeding out, and that affects your speed throughout the game. And you can collect campers along the way, and sometimes you can use those campers as meat shields.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, there's one kid called Lunchbox, and his entire function is being a meat shield. It's so sad but wonderful. And the other kids can help you. Like there's a kid who is just like that creepy kid who doesn't shower or has a knife for some reason, and you're like, what the heck, kid?
Give me that knife.
But also, thank you, protect me. And they'll like help you if, Otis strikes your cabin, and you get to be like, my kid has a knife. I get to have more dice when I have to fight him. And if you don't have a weapon, you can't fight Otis. He just hits you. And you have to run away in a panic, and you're horrified.
And your life total goes down?
And your life total goes down, and his body count goes up.
Uh-oh.
And if you roll survival cards, sometimes cameos will get put on the board. So they'll be like that creepy guy who's been shouting about the end of the world will start walking around your cabin, and Otis will inevitably go to kill him first rather than you, but
to get that body count.
To get the body count. But it's those cameos that are just in the movie for 5 seconds to get murdered. and they're all very funny. There's the sheriff, there's the head camp counselor, and if they catch you, they do bad things to you. Like they'll be like, "Get back into bed, camper," and they'll steal the keys that you had, or things like that.
But counselor, there's a murderer trying to kill me.
Oh yeah, funny, very funny.
No, but really.
And it's
so hard being a kid. No one believes you.
It's really hard being a kid.
Now, Otis is generated by the game. All the players are camp counselors.
Yes.
So no one plays Otis.
No one in particular plays Otis, but you sort of can trade who moves Otis. It's just whoever. It's never at random, really. It's sort of whoever's the closest to Otis when he strikes. That's who's coming that's who's going towards them.
But when it's semi-cooperative, that means that can imply that you don't necessarily have to all succeed together.
You don't have to succeed together. So if you are all at the final, you're all at the boat, and you're going to escape on this boat ending. You've got the keys, you've got the battery, and most of you are at the boat, and some of you are still like lost in the woods or on the other side of camp, and Otis is on the board because sometimes Otis can leave the board. If you've successfully hit him, he disappears for a bit.
That's great.
And so people can be on the other side of the board, and you can choose to leave without them. You can abandon them at the camp with Otis. Now, here's the thing, though. You have to weigh the choices, because sometimes if you leave someone at the camp, the game doesn't end at the finale. So the finale happens. You get to play out the end, like the third act, basically, the end of the third act. So you can all survive and escape and then still all get killed. So in the boat finale, you can either be, there's a couple of them. Sometimes you all are swimming, like the boat, Otis gets in the boat and you all have, you bail out of the boat and you swim or whatever. If you don't succeed in these roles at the very end to get away from Otis in the final act, you're just the ending death scenes. And the people that you left at the camp, it'll say like, well, you got left at camp and everything was quiet and you made it to the dawn and the police showed up and you lived. Like you got left and everyone who abandoned you didn't win.
When the quote unquote finale happens, there's another phase after that, which is where does Otis go between those two groups?
Well, Otis will always follow the ending. And if you so Otis will always follow the ending. So if everyone survives the ending, then
those people win.
Just those people win, and it'll be like, oh, well, no one, you all escaped, and no one at the camp was ever heard from again. So like, oh, I got left, and that means I'm dead, But it's not always. If you get left, sometimes that's the best thing, because then Otis doesn't stay in your camp, and he goes after everyone else.
Oh, what a brilliant game. I love this, and I love this concept. And this is from the publisher Ameritrash Games.
Yeah, it's great.
Who made a game company based on the title that encapsulates how Americans love to value theme over mechanics at times.
Yes.
That's kind of the Ameritrash
Very
philosophy. Yeah, but
they've got expansions coming out sometime, I hope.
Yeah, because this game came out originally in 2013.
Yeah.
So
it says there are a couple on Board Game Geek that were all published in like 2014. So maybe
read us those names. I love a good expansion name.
Spin the Bottle.
Yes, Spin the Bottle was an expansion. I believe some of them were only for Kickstarter backers.
Oh, geez. You got to get in on the ground floor.
It's true.
Now, Gina,
but playing the role play is just fun. I always play a character called Kevin the lifeguard. And he just wants everyone to get out safe. Come on, guys.
I love that picture because he's like smiling and being charming in the picture, but in the background you can see a kid struggling to not drown.
Basically. He gets a little distracted by all of the other players. He gets a lot of crushes.
Oh, easily. Yeah. That would happen with Kevin. God, he's got that beach blonde hair, just long enough to flow in the wind. Anyway, that's Kevin. All right, Gina.
Yes.
These games and your style of play seems to have a theme. Of course, role-playing, because you are a storyteller through and through. But the element of co-op, what is it about you that makes you lean towards games that are less cutthroat, more about the friendship?
The friendship of it. Well, I think it's always stemmed from I don't like feeling particularly competitive because I know that I can get competitive, and then it's sort of, for me, I don't like the way competitive feels in my body. It feels very anxiety driven and very I get very anxious, and I can't I don't like the feeling of not being able to trust my friends
I love that.
and knowing that they're lying to me and that I have to lie to their face.
That's my favorite.
I know. I'm just sweet talking you.
You really are.
But I've never I can definitely get into certain games that have that element when you add that sort of no one's taking this seriously. Then I can get into it. But I've definitely been to game nights when everyone's taking it very seriously. Sometimes people get very angry or sort of competitive to a toxic level.
Right. Kind of the tone of the table is what you're concerned with?
The tone of the table. Yeah, more competitive games, there's more of a risk of, if you don't know the gaming group you're with or something, or, there's too much liquor has been involved in the game, or you've been playing for 6 hours and people's tensions are just a little higher. There's just a little more risk for my personal taste as a slightly empathic sort of, I feel the room very intensely.
Yeah.
And so there's just that element of stress that isn't my go-to. I will definitely do it and I'll usually have a good time, but there's always that risk of just, this room just got uncomfortable.
I love that. But so if you want to moderate your table tone and you have people at the table who are empaths, then the right kind of game is not just a co-op, but a storytelling based, maybe semi-co-op.
Yeah. And there are games like Avalon and things where people are spies hidden amongst everyone and things like that can definitely go to the spectrum of, oh boy, everyone is lying and everyone's kind of being a jerk to each other.
Those games are particularly tough because not only are they lying about your identity, but you're also pointing to another person and saying you are lying.
Yes, exactly. But I've played in versions where it was the most fun and everyone was just being silly and everyone was just accusing everyone and it was madness and chaos and it was super fun. And I've definitely had one where I was like, I can't tell if you're actually mad at me. and then I start to question everything and then you're just left with a weird feeling.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
I tend to like when there's just no way that's going to happen. It's pure, you have to work together and you're going to get stressed together and you have to work towards the problem. It's just my super punk genre, basically. It's a horrifying setting of, pandemic or whatever and there's diseases running amok and you got to fight together to eradicate the diseases. I love that kind of stuff.
Well, there you have it. Yes. If you can avoid all that pain and suffering of pointing fingers and accusing your friends if you just decide to suffer together.
Suffer together. Exactly. Suffer together, fail together, win together.
All right.
Oh, nice.
Now, a couple more games I want to chat about before we go today. And one is my all-time top 5 of games ever.
Yes.
Carcassonne.
Yes, which I played for the first time with you.
Yeah.
And then I immediately went out and bought the game at a con.
Oh, amazing. So this is a tile-laying game, for those that don't know. This classic, I believe it's won a Spiel des Jahres. If it hasn't, I'm saying it has. Because it should. There are many expansions, but Carcassonne is a tile-laying game for 2 to 5 players, and all you do on your turn is you grab a tile from one of the face-down piles, and you add it to the collective map that everyone's creating together.
Exactly. So almost a co-op.
Yeah.
But you're
with
definitely
points.
working for yourself.
Yeah.
I loved it so much. It was so relaxing. It was like putting a puzzle together.
Yes.
It almost feels cooperative even though it's not.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Depends who you play with, but yeah.
Exactly.
almost.
Very much. But even in a competitive setting, it is so relaxing. It doesn't ever feel like, I think because you can screw each other over, but that won't necessarily help you in the long run because then you're wasting your own tile. And so it's more of a, you just rely on yourself and you build a beautiful map together, and sometimes you can work together. And like that time that we played and someone made like this beautiful heart city and it was just this city of love. And we, in that moment, like, no one cared about their own towns. They were just like, can we just stop and look at this beautiful town of love?
You know, if you're ever wondering if you're an empath, just notice the shape of the walls of this fortified city.
Again, for people who haven't played, so it's very simple. Aside from just laying down your one tile each turn, you can place your meeples on the tile you just laid in multiple formats. If there is a little piece of city on your tile, you have to line it up with other pieces of city or up against edges of the map that match, and you'll earn points by placing a meeple in that city that is called a knight. And then when those city walls are all completed, you'll get your knight back and you'll immediately gain points, 2 points for each tile that is part of that city. Or more if they have bonuses on them. And then you could be a highwayman if you're on a road and a road is finished and you get your meeple back when
Or
there's...
a mope, if you're a pope.
A mope?
Yeah.
A mope?
Remember?
You call it a mope?
Yeah, I like to call it a mope because it's
That
meeples.
particular
so
one,
it's a mope, not a pope.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, the mope will gain points in his monastery if he or she is surrounded by, if that tile is encapsulated by 8 other tiles that have been placed, then you finished a monastery. And it's such a lovely little game.
It's so lovely.
Of
You
earning
just build
victory points and
gardens
building.
and buildings, and it's relaxing. It's a lot like tiny towns in that way.
Yeah.
Different sort of game
Yes. But more
pieces, but
together.
You're slowly, everyone's building their own town, but you're just kind of doing your own thing and building a town for yourself. And by the end, you're like, all right, who built the best town? And not so much like, ha ha,
Yeah.
ha ha, I built a better town. It's
Well, unless you get the
can.
farmers involved, you know what I mean?
Both Tiny Towns and Carcassonne do that, where they both have very simple rules. So the rule books for getting into those games are quite basic, but then the strategy is actually kind of endless because of the combination of options.
Yeah, every game is just going to be kind of different.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although genre-wise, they're very different.
Yes.
But thematically and sort of the feelings, they're
Process-wise,
similar.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
Tiny Towns is essentially... Not exactly, but it kind of feels like a roll and write game because you could play completely individually.
Yes.
Or you can play side by side with other players.
Yes.
As we did on May 10th, there's a Twitch VOD of Tiny Towns, which if you buy the game, you could play along with me. Anyway, I don't know why I'm talking about that.
Happy Hammers Day.
Because that's relevant.
Oh, well, okay.
You were selling it so good, and then you're just like, well, I don't know why I'm mentioning this completely relevant topic.
Self-indulgent, that's why.
It's your
that's why I second
podcast.
guess. Oh,
Did you notice how we both got very low for you?
Your face is
Thank
on
you.
the logo of this show.
is it my face or is it some redheaded woman?
You're right. We could replace it with Missandra for something.
Anything else you love about Carcassonne?
It's just really the feeling. The feeling of a game is sort of what draws me in the most. If it's gonna, just the mood of the game is really impactful in what makes me like or play it a bunch.
It's always a good sign when someone comes on the show, plays a game, and then immediately goes out and buys it.
Immediately.
Yeah.
And one final game we should mention is Illimat.
Yes.
Illimat was a game that was reverse engineered from a Decemberist music video created by our friend Keith Baker, and which is Together Studios is the publisher. And the Decemberists, the band, made this music video, and people were playing with the box and a sheet of fabric.
Yeah.
And they went to Keith Baker and they said, Can you make a game that is whatever we're doing in the background of this music video? And he did, working within those constraints. Yeah. So tell us more about this game and why you like it.
Okay, so when I first, I believe Amy Dallin was the person that was like, I just got this game. We're going to play it. It was right after Gen Con. We were sitting in the airport and we opened it up, and it felt like opening a little magic box. It was so beautiful and so sort of otherworldly in a way. Like I think
It has a tarot kind of feel.
it has a very tarot card. Yes, exactly. And I believe it was pitched to me. I'm not sure if this is true, but I believe they said that when they made the board game, they wanted it to feel like you'd found it in your grandmother's closet and many of the pieces had been replaced, and it was just sort of this magic game that no one had ever heard of, and you just find it and you play it together.
Yeah, like the Secret Society.
a secret society
had
game.
it. Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's this beautiful cloth, and basically the idea is you're all farmers and
You're just trying to harvest
You're just
cards.
trying to harvest your crops for that sort of period of summer solstice versus winter solstice and spring and summer and autumn and the box itself is part of the board game and it goes on the cloth and sometimes it's so beautiful because it's relaxing and it's math.
Unless you think it's like a resource gathering game, it's actually kind of like a
very much.
but it's like a trick playing game almost, right?
It
like
is too.
playing card tricks, not card tricks like magic tricks.
The cards definitely affect the game.
Yes,
it's a decks. It's a card system with like sort of playing cards. They look like your sort of 52 card set, and they act as the seeds that you can plant and sow and harvest. But if the board, which is the box, is like winter, it'll say you cannot harvest during winter because the crops have not grown.
Right.
So if you have a perfect combo and you can get a bunch of points, too bad. It's winter and you can't harvest, and that set of cards is just not going to help.
Yeah, let me jump in and describe it a little more.
Yeah.
So on the cloth, there are, of course, as you said, the 4 sides of the box represent the 4 seasons. On each side of the box, you're going to lay out 3 cards. And your goal is you also have cards in hand. On my turn, I can either lay down a card on top of an existing card, or I can look at a pile of cards that is out there and take it by playing a card that equals the current value. So if on, let's say, the spring side of the board, there's a 3, if someone else had played a 6 on top of the 3 as their turn, because perhaps they have a 9 in their hand and they're going to wait till it comes back around to them, take the 9, place it on top of the 3 and the 6, and because 3 and 6 equals 9, you can take that whole pile and put it into your claimed cards, harvested cards, because you farmed all those. But if before it gets back around to that player, someone else has a 9, they can just steal it.
They absolutely can. They can be like, oh, look at this beautiful crop right here. I'm just going to harvest that.
Yeah. And some cards make you rotate the box so that the seasons are facing different cards.
And that's a great mechanic, too. Just move the box, but the cards all stay in the same place.
Yeah, because that's the sort of trick and strategy you can start doing. So if you see someone has compiled a really big stack and they're going to get a pretty good score from that, you can be like, well, I have a face card, so like I have a queen. There's a queen on the board. If you place the queen, if 2 faces you collect, it will change to the season of that face card. So you can
start that shit. Winter came.
Exactly. So you can rotate the box, and then that person can't get that score. And it's just all that. And if you clear out the whole field of crops, you get these tarot cards that you get to flip, and they add more elements to the game, whether it's, now winter doesn't matter. You can harvest all the time because you have this beautiful sort of otherworldly god looking down on your crops that helps you.
Oh, love that god.
It's really lovely. And then you get to collect these sort of really neat pieces. There's like a little silver speedboat and tooth and all these really cool sort of tiny Monopoly pieces.
Yeah, they do remind me of Monopoly pieces.
Sure. I think if you take the last card in a given season area, then you can grab one of the Monopoly tokens, and that counts as in-game points.
Turn one of the tarot cards and collect it, you get to, and everything gets you points. The more you collect, the more you get points, and sometimes cards deduct you points. So you kind of go, one of these cards gets me points, but the other one on the stack will deduct me points. Is it worth it? And there's just so much to think about during the game that you're kind of always strategizing but it always feels really relaxing because you're just a bunch of farmers.
It's a good gateway game, too, because it's not complex and it actually is playing cards for the most part.
Yeah.
So like a lot of people who are unfamiliar with games but know what a deck of cards looks like can transition into that pretty well.
Yeah, it's a lot of different elements. Like the matching up game is just like, oh, this is just like Uno and Go Fish.
And the
this
box,
and that, and
how it all just is in one little unit is actually pretty nice, and it lays out to become the whole board.
Yeah, I think so. For me, this is a pretty okay game for me. It's not my favorite because I think there's a lot of. I think in individual games I've played, I've been frustrated by the luck of what cards I had in my hand, or
Sure.
well, I never had a chance to claim that goddess for my own. So sometimes a game that's heavy in luck is not necessarily high on my list, but I do like that it is compact. It's a great gateway game, as you mentioned. This is something I give as a gift to family members that maybe are not huge into super complex games.
Yeah.
And it's just, you could play it in a line very easily, and it plays in about 30 minutes or less, which is always nice to have those games when that's the game you need in that time frame.
Exactly. And that's why I don't mind that it's luck, because you can get through a game really quickly. So you get to play usually about 3 rounds of it. So there's usually a chance that you win at least one of the times, because it is a little luck-based and strategy. But it's like magic cards. Sometimes you don't get a good hand, and it's not worth it to mulligan.
Don't get me started. It's a whole other podcast going on in my brain all the time. All right. Well, Gina, it's been such a pleasure to talk to you today.
It's been very fun.
Is there anything you'd like to tell our listeners about that they should check out of yours, or that you're just excited about in your own life, of something you're doing soon?
Yeah, sure. My podcast, Champions of the Earth, which is our kids with powers fighting the evils of the universe, just came back.
Whoa, where's this?
Where all podcasts are found and distributed.
I know the answer to that question. Are you doing it independently?
No, it's our good friends Colin Kelly and Jackson Lansing and Amanda Powers and it's all of the wonderful people that we've seen at GNS a handful of times. But they are sort of, they homebrewed this, or Colin Kelly homebrewed this game, and we're sort of the beta test podcast. So we play the campaign, and then occasionally we check in and we go, all right, beta test interviews, like what's been working for you, what's not so great, like how do you want to improve it, how do you like in the game sheet, and then we're sort of restructuring the system as we go and playing in it and seeing how everything plays out while also saving the universe.
Awesome. Give us the name one more time.
Champions of the Earth.
Make sure you go check it out. Jake, what have you been into lately?
I've been to a lot of things, but I do want to recommend a board game that I tried for the first time. It was shown to me by a previous guest of ours. This game is called Nyctophobia.
Nope.
Ooh, what's that?
Ivan Van Norman showed this to me about a week ago. But it's a game where 3 to 4 players, I believe, are trying to survive in the woods. And there is a killer or vampire, depending on the edition you play, in the woods with you. But the key is the people who are trying to survive are wearing glasses where they cannot see the board. The board, though, is tactile, and you can feel it.
It is a game that essentially is, what would it be like to, I think part of the inspiration for it is, what is a game that makes sense for a blind person to be able to play, puts players into that feeling. Honestly, my feeling was extreme frustration, because I rely very heavily on my vision, and having that taken away, I was like, I don't know. This feels like a pointy thing. They all feel like pointy things to me.
That sounds really cool.
It's very interesting.
It develops a new skill.
Yes.
For us sighted people that take for granted our sight all the time.
And playing with someone like Ivan Van Norman, who, by the way, the other player who Ivan played is the killer, and therefore is moving, and they're limited to a number of rules, much like Otis is, and they have to move to the closest person, but they have cards that they can play to change their actions.
Sure.
But Ivan's particularly good at it, where that person also has to guide your hand to the piece on your turn, and he does that. And he does that honestly and safely.
Sure.
But when you are close to the killer, he'll make a noise near you, and then when he hits you, he'll just go and grab you. And he freaks you out every time. So he's very good at tension. And so that's kind of half the game, is playing with the tension.
Okay.
No.
I think maybe I was playing in the middle of a busy con floor.
Oh, no.
And there was a lot of stimuli, and I didn't know. I was playing with someone from Pandasaurus, I believe, that made the game. And I think it was the wrong setting to really set the mood of it.
Not the right table tone.
Silence
wrong table tone.
sounds like a good way to play that.
Yes.
A little bit, or eerie music even.
Yeah.
Yeah, highly recommend you at least try it out. Like, I don't know if I would play it a lot and keep replaying it, but I played it once and I'm like very fascinated.
And the person playing the evil creature in the woods can see everything.
They can see, so they know everything. But they are
What a
limited in their
beautiful
movement. They just
game
kind of
of
can only go the
trust.
closest. It's great. It's really good. We played for a long time, dude. We played like for almost an hour, which is a weird thing to be completely blind and in a room where
Yeah.
everybody else can see.
Wow. How'd you do?
What is
Did you
this
get away
called
from the
again?
killer?
We died-
Nyctophobia.
Nyctophobia.
We died in we were like 2 turns away from getting away from the getaway car. We were really close. But the thing is we don't know where the tree line is,
Yeah.
and we're trying to count how many spaces we went back, and we were like just 1 tree line away. It was
Oh,
wonderful.
no.
Yeah. It was great.
Oh, you gotta have
You're
that mental
so
map.
close.
Well, I just want to shout out a game I enjoyed this week, which is Dungeon Academy. This is from the Op.
Yeah.
We played it on Game to Game, and it is a roll and write game, kind of. Everybody is being timed to draw out which way they would go through a dungeon. The dungeon is made up of a series of dice, and you're all looking at the same dice as they're revealed simultaneously, and you have to draw lines on your sheet of paper, and the sooner you get out, the sooner you grab the first place token or the second place token, and you get extra bonuses for getting out quicker.
Wow.
And if you tried to fight a monster and you didn't have enough health left to fight that monster, you die and you get no points for that level. It's very fun, very simple, very cute. Also good for a line.
Yeah.
Whether or not a game is good in a line is a big factor for me.
This is very true.
Mm-hmm.
It's a solid game too because you are forced to do it quickly. The whole timer element doesn't let you think too hard about the process. The grid is it's 4x4 dice, so you have like a map for you already, and then you have to encounter monsters and or potions along the way.
Yeah, it's excellent.
Ooh.
Highly recommend from the Op. And one shout out to a great app. Don't know who makes it. It's Heads Up. I think everybody knows this that's ever been to
I think
Disneyland.
That's Ellen DeGeneres' game.
Really? Or maybe she
believe
did some
she-
branding on it?
I believe she took it to a person to make.
You're
I think it was
kidding
her
me.
game. I believe so.
It is a version of like charades or another just party game at home, like parlor game. But it is an app that if you are the one guessing clues, people are shouting at you, you will hold a phone up to your head and it will say something and people will try and get you to say that thing. It's great for the lines at Disneyland, and I went to Disneyland yesterday, which is why I'm thinking about it.
It also records the people telling you the questions.
Some of the funniest videos of all time
It's
come
very,
from people
very
acting
silly.
out different animals, skiing or, doing different things.
Yes.
All right. Well, that's all the time we have for today on Victory Points, friends. Make sure you check back next week and make sure you tell your friends to check us out. And please like, subscribe, rate, review. Okay, bye.
Bye.